Barriers to inclusion in education. In this tutorial, we will focus on the main barriers to inclusive education. Knowledge about the barriers to inclusion for students with special needs in education has an important role to play in protecting their rights and encourage policymakers to take action to break down barriers to inclusive education for all. Without education, students with disabilities and special needs will lack the tools they need to live a meaningful life and remain on the margins of society. So, what are the main barriers to inclusive education? Schools that do not wish to enroll students with disabilities and special needs sometimes deny them access to mainstream schools and classroom learning. Schools that do not wish to enroll students with disabilities and special needs with, for example, disability-related problem behavior, sometimes exclude these students. Many students with disabilities remain segregated in self-contained classrooms or in separate schools with limited or no opportunities to participate in general education classrooms and school activities. Moreover, many do not have access to the same academic and extracurricular activities and services provided to other students. Caregivers may reject and fail to meet the critical needs of a student with disabilities or special needs. School building sometimes poses problems to the realization of the educational goals of the government. Many students with disabilities and special needs are simply unable to attend school because of the inaccessibility of the schools and classrooms or adequate sanitation facilities. Many students with disabilities are simply unable to attend school because of the unavailability of accessible transportation to and from school. Without accessible transportation, a student who uses a wheelchair cannot go to school. Of those students with disabilities who do attend school, many of them are subjected to inferior education in separate schools or classrooms. Poor teacher recruitment and teacher training programs are identified as additional barriers to inclusive education. Students with disabilities are sometimes not provided with the services or accommodations they may need to learn. Without a sign language interpreter, a deaf student cannot understand or speak with teachers or classmates. Without books and assignment in Braille, large print text or access to text-to-speech software, a student with vision impairments cannot complete assignments. Without extra time on tests or the assistance of an aide, note-taking, tutoring, or other modifications, a student with a learning or other cognitive or developmental disability is effectively denied the opportunity to receive any education at all. Children with less severe disabilities, such as learning disabilities, may even not be considered disabled in many countries at all, thereby denying them support. The lack of qualified teachers, either untrained or unwilling to include students with disabilities in their classrooms, the lack of teaching materials, as well as lack of awareness and negative attitudes in the school environment towards disabled people and inclusive education, makes realization of the goals of integrating students with disabilities into regular classrooms with children without disabilities difficult. Expanding teacher training to include how to build inclusive classrooms and inclusive teaching strategies would go a long way towards mitigating some of the problems of exclusion and mastering the skills to encourage all students to learn and develop. Prejudices should be combated to overcome the path towards an inclusive educational system. There are still millions of students with disabilities throughout the world who are hidden at home or prevented from attending school by their own families, who are so ashamed of their children's disabilities that they are reluctant to let their children leave their homes, thereby inhibiting them from fulfilling their potential, obtaining access to education, and leading independent lives. To conclude, there are still millions of students with disabilities throughout the world who are never even enrolled in school. Through policies and practices of exclusion, segregation, indirect discrimination, neglect, inaccessibility, or unavailability of adequate equipment or transport, students with disabilities and special needs are denied access to mainstream schools and classroom learning. Disability increases the risk of poverty, while living in poverty increases the risk of developing or worsening a disabling condition. Therefore, the poorer the students are, the greater is their risk of developing disabling impairments that will prevent them from attending and benefiting from school. Despite these many barriers to education, education provides the most direct route out of poverty. It also increases a person's value as a participating and contributing member of society. The elephant in the room, of course, is enforcement. How can we ensure the realization of the important right to inclusive education for all students with disabilities? Students are encouraged to watch the UNICEF video on students with disabilities. Students with disabilities are among the most vulnerable in the world, and their rights are often violated. A student with disability placed in a special institution often misses out on education. Changing policies ensure that students with disabilities are provided with quality, inclusive education. That means getting each and every student an opportunity to learn at their local school with enough support to reach their full potential. Inclusive education means all students, including students with disabilities, should have the opportunity to receive individualized services approaches to learning.